Admiral Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard Luna Defense Station, watching Earth spin slowly through the large window. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from this distance, but Jake knew that peace was about to end. His communication officer, Lieutenant Ryan Foster, turned toward him with a worried face. "Sir, we have an incoming transmission from deep space. It's using multiple alien languages and appears to be official," Ryan said, his voice shaking slightly. Jake nodded and activated the main screen. The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge freeze. 12 different alien species sat around a circular table, their strange faces looking directly at the camera. The one in the center, a tall being with silver skin and 4 arms, began to speak. "People of Earth, I am High Commander Vex of the Galactic Council. Your species has been observed and judged. You spread across the stars too quickly. You fight too much. You take resources that belong to others. The Council has decided that humanity is a threat to galactic peace." Jake felt his heart sink as the alien continued speaking. The other beings around the table nodded in agreement, their various eyes and appendages moving in ways that seemed threatening even across the vast distance of space. "You have exactly 72 Earth hours to surrender your planet completely. Remove all military forces from Earth's orbit. Prepare your leaders for transportation to Council space for judgment. If you refuse, our combined fleet will destroy every human settlement, every ship, and every trace of your existence. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in complete silence. Jake stared at the blank screen for several seconds before turning to his tactical officer, Captain Lisa Hayes. Lisa was one of the best military minds in the human fleet, and Jake trusted her judgment more than anyone else. "What are we looking at, Lisa?" Jake asked quietly. Lisa pulled up the intelligence reports on her screen, her fingers moving quickly across the controls. "Sir, our deep space sensors show a massive fleet gathering at the edge of our solar system. Initial counts suggest over 50,000 ships of various sizes. Each one appears to be more advanced than anything in our current arsenal." Jake rubbed his forehead, feeling the weight of the entire human race on his shoulders. "How many ships do we have available for defense?" "Across all human space, we have approximately 2,400 operational warships. Most of them are scattered across our colonies and trade routes. We could maybe gather 800 ships to defend Earth if we had several weeks to call them back," Lisa replied, her voice growing more grim with each word. The communication console beeped again, and Ryan looked up. "Sir, we have President Daniel Carter on a secure line from Washington." Jake activated the private channel, and the familiar face of the president appeared on his personal screen. Daniel looked older than Jake remembered, with new lines around his eyes and gray streaks in his hair. The stress of leading humanity through its rapid expansion across the galaxy had clearly taken its toll. "Jake, please tell me you have some good news," Daniel said without any greeting. "I'm afraid not, Mr. President. The threat is real, and it's bigger than anything we've ever faced. Our conventional forces won't be enough to stop them," Jake replied. "Honestly?" Daniel closed his eyes for a moment before speaking again. "I'm calling an emergency session with the Joint Chiefs in 1 hour. Can you make it to Earth in time?" "Yes, sir. I'll take the fastest ship we have," Jake said. "Good. We need every option on the table. General Frank Miller is already talking about evacuation plans, and Admiral Susan Blake wants to fight no matter what the odds are. I need your honest assessment of our chances." Jake thought carefully before answering. "Sir, based on what we're seeing, our chances of victory using conventional tactics are essentially 0. The technology gap is too large, and they outnumber us by more than 20 to 1. Daniel nodded slowly. "Then we need to think outside the box. I'll see you in an hour." The connection ended, and Jake turned to Lisa. "Take command of the station. I need to get to Earth immediately." As Jake prepared to leave, he made one more call on his personal communicator. The signal was encrypted with codes that had been passed down through generations of select military officers. After several rings, a familiar voice answered. "Dr. Richard Stone here. Richard, it's Jake. We need to talk. The time has come." There was a long pause before Richard replied. "Are you absolutely certain? Once we start this, there's no going back." Jake looked out at Earth one more time, thinking about the billions of people who had no idea their world was about to change forever. "Yes, I'm certain. It's time to wake them up." "Understood. I'll begin the preparation sequence immediately. How long do we have?" 72 hours, Jake said. "That should be enough." "Jake, you know what this means, don't you? Everything changes after this." Jake nodded, even though Richard couldn't see him. "I know. But humanity deserves to know the truth about who we really are." 70 years earlier, Dr. Helen Grant wiped sweat from her forehead as she studied the strange readings on her geological scanner. The Yellowstone research team had been drilling core samples for 3 weeks, but today's results made no sense at all. Her assistant engineer, Paul Davis, looked over her shoulder at the display. "That can't be right," Paul said, pointing at the screen. "The density readings show a massive hollow space beneath us. But that's impossible. We're sitting on top of solid volcanic rock." Helen checked her equipment twice, running every diagnostic she could think of. "The instruments are working perfectly. According to this, there's an enormous empty space about 2 miles down, stretching for hundreds of miles in every direction." Dr. Charles Webb, the team's lead archaeologist, walked over to see what had captured their attention. Charles was known for his careful approach to unusual discoveries, never jumping to conclusions without proper evidence. "What exactly are we looking at here?" Helen showed him the readings, explaining how the sound waves from their deep drilling equipment were revealing something that shouldn't exist. "It's like there's a giant cave system down there, but the geological history of this area doesn't support that kind of formation." Charles studied the data for several minutes before making a decision that would change human history. "We need to go deeper. I want a full drilling operation to investigate this anomaly." It took 6 weeks to drill down to the hollow space, using equipment borrowed from 3 different government agencies. When they finally broke through, the drill bit fell into empty air for several seconds before hitting something solid far below. The team lowered cameras into the hole, but the lights couldn't penetrate the darkness effectively. Paul volunteered to be the first person to descend into the unknown space. Wearing a full safety harness and breathing apparatus, he was lowered down through the narrow drill hole until he reached a vast cavern that stretched beyond the reach of his lights. What he found there made him call up to the surface in a voice filled with wonder and confusion. "You're not going to believe this," Paul's voice crackled through the radio. "There are structures down here. Massive metal structures that look like they were built by humans, but the technology is unlike anything I've ever seen." Over the next several months, the team carefully expanded the access tunnel and began exploring the underground complex. What they discovered defied every assumption about human history and technological development. The cavern system contained what could only be described as a massive shipyard, filled with vessels that were clearly of human design, but incorporated technology centuries ahead of anything that existed on the surface. Helen was the first to realize the true scope of the discovery. As she walked through the underground facility with her team, she counted over 1,000 ships of various sizes, all perfectly preserved in the dry, stable environment. The smallest vessels were the size of modern fighter jets, while the largest were bigger than any building on Earth's surface. Charles made the most important discovery while examining the ship's markings and inscriptions. Using his knowledge of ancient languages, he found text written in Sanskrit, Latin, Greek, and other human languages that dated back thousands of years. But the truly shocking part was that these ancient writings described advanced scientific concepts that modern humans had only recently discovered. "This changes everything we thought we knew about human history," Charles told the team during one of their evening briefings. These inscriptions suggest that an advanced human civilization existed long before any of our recorded history begins. Paul, who had been studying the ship's technology, made equally astounding discoveries. The power systems in these vessels use principles that our best scientists are only beginning to understand. The materials are stronger than anything we can manufacture, and the design concepts are centuries ahead of our current capabilities. The team discovered computer systems throughout the facility that were still functional after untold centuries. When they finally managed to access the data stored in these ancient machines, they found records that told an incredible story. And advanced human civilization had indeed existed in Earth's distant past, developing technology that allowed them to travel between stars and build incredible machines. But this ancient society had faced a terrible crisis. The records spoke of a great threat that forced them to make an impossible choice. Rather than fight a war that might destroy everything they had built, they chose to hide their most advanced technology and go into a form of suspended animation, waiting for a time when their descendants would need their help. Dr. Stone, a young researcher who had joined the team partway through the project, was the one who found the most crucial piece of information. Deep in the computer records, he discovered detailed instructions for awakening the sleeping civilization when Earth faced a threat too great for surface humans to handle alone. They knew this day would come, Dr. Stone told the others as they gathered around the ancient computer terminal. They planned for it. Everything down here is designed to wait for the moment when humanity would need its true strength revealed. The discovery was immediately classified at the highest levels of government. Only a few dozen people in the entire world were told the truth about what lay beneath Yellowstone. The decision was made to keep the ancient fleet secret, passing knowledge of its existence down through carefully selected individuals in each generation. Helen, Paul, Charles, and Dr. Stone became the first guardians of humanity's greatest secret. They established protocols for maintaining the underground facility and prepared for the day when the sleeping ships would be needed. Each of them took an oath to protect the secret until the time came for the ancient fleet to emerge. Years passed, and the Guardians grew older, but they never forgot their responsibility. They trained their replacements carefully, ensuring that each new generation understood both the incredible opportunity and the enormous responsibility that came with knowledge of humanity's true heritage. The surface world continued to develop and expand into space, never knowing that their greatest protection lay sleeping in the darkness far beneath their feet. Dr. Richard Stone stood before the massive control panel that had waited in darkness for 70 years. His hands shook slightly as he entered the ancient activation codes that had been passed down through 3 generations of Guardians. The symbols on the screen were a mixture of human languages from different eras, but Richard had studied them his entire adult life. Deep beneath Yellowstone, systems that had been dormant for centuries began to stir. Massive fusion reactors, built with technology that surface humans were only beginning to understand, slowly came online. The hum of power flowing through ancient conduits grew louder as each system activated in its predetermined sequence. Commander Nick Rogers led the first team down into the awakening facility. He had been briefed on the basics, but nothing could have prepared him for what he saw. Engineer Amy Clark walked beside him, her scanner beeping constantly as it detected energy signatures that shouldn't exist. Dr. Kevin Brown, the team's xenobiologist, carried equipment designed to monitor any alien technology they might encounter, never suspecting he was about to witness something far more extraordinary. "The power levels down here are incredible," Amy said, checking her readings again. "These fusion reactors are producing more energy than our largest surface installations, but they're completely silent and apparently pollution-free." Nick nodded, but his attention was focused on the vast chamber they had just entered. Hundreds of ships sat in perfect rows, each one connected to power and maintenance systems that had kept them in pristine condition for countless years. "How? Is this possible? Some of these ships look like they were built yesterday." Dr. Brown was studying his scanners with growing amazement. The environmental controls in this facility are beyond anything we have on the surface. Temperature, humidity, even the air composition is perfectly controlled. But the technology required to maintain this for centuries shouldn't exist. As they moved deeper into the facility, they began to encounter the most shocking discovery of all. Inside specially designed chambers throughout the complex, humans lay in what appeared to be deep sleep. Advanced life support systems monitored their vital signs and maintained their bodies in perfect condition. Amy approached one of the sleeping chambers carefully, studying the displays that showed the occupant status. These people are alive. The medical readings show normal brain activity, but it's like they're in the deepest possible sleep. Richard joined them in the chamber, carrying an ancient manual that contained awakening procedures. They're not just sleeping. This is a form of suspended animation that our surface technology can't achieve. These people have been waiting here for centuries, possibly longer. Nick looked at the sleeping figure through the transparent chamber wall. The man appeared to be in his 30s, with the kind of physical conditioning that suggested military training. Who are they? According to the records we've found, they're volunteers from the original advanced civilization. When their society decided to go into hiding, some of their best people chose to sleep until the day Earth would need them again, Richard explained. Dr. Brown checked his equipment readings again, hardly believing what he was seeing. The medical technology keeping them alive is centuries ahead of anything we have. Their bodies haven't aged at all during their sleep. It's like time stopped for them. Richard began the awakening procedure for the first sleeper, following instructions that had been carefully preserved in the ancient computers. The process was slow and gentle, designed to bring someone back from the deepest possible unconsciousness without causing damage to their body or mind. The man's eyes opened slowly, and he looked around the chamber with confusion that quickly turned to alertness. When he spoke, his voice was clear and strong, though he used words and phrases that seemed both familiar and ancient. "How long have we slept?" the man asked, sitting up carefully in his chamber. Richard checked the computer displays before answering. "Based on our calculations, approximately 800 years. The man nodded as if this was exactly what he had expected to hear. "Then the time has come. I am Captain Tony Walsh of the Deep Fleet. Are we under attack?" Nick stepped forward, introducing himself and explaining the current situation with the Galactic Council's ultimatum. As he spoke, Tony's expression grew more serious, but he didn't seem surprised by the news. "We always knew this day would arrive," Tony said as he stood and began checking the chamber's controls. "Our civilization spent centuries preparing for the moment when Earth would face a threat too great for surface humanity to handle alone." Amy watched in amazement as Tony operated controls that she couldn't even identify. "How do you know how to use all this equipment? It's completely different from anything we have on the surface." Tony smiled for the first time since awakening. "Because this is our technology. Your surface civilization rebuilt itself from almost nothing after the Great Hiding, but we maintained the original knowledge and capabilities. Everything you see here represents humanity's true technological level." Dr. Brown was studying his scanners again, and what he found made him call the others over urgently. "The energy readings are spiking throughout the entire complex. Something big is happening." Richard checked the main control systems and found that Tony's awakening had triggered automated sequences throughout the facility. "The other sleepers are beginning to wake up. The entire fleet is starting its activation process." As they watched, thousands of chambers throughout the complex began opening. Men and women who had slept for centuries started emerging, each one moving with the same purposeful efficiency as Tony. They seemed to know exactly what to do, as if their long sleep had been filled with dreams of this moment. Captain Tony Walsh led Nick and his team to a massive observation deck that overlooked the main shipyard. What they saw there took their breath away. The chamber stretched for miles in every direction, containing not hundreds but thousands of ships. Some were sleek fighters designed for speed and maneuverability, while others were massive vessels that could carry entire armies. 1 million ships, Tony said simply. Each one crewed by volunteers who chose to sleep until humanity needed them most. We are the Deep Fleet, the hidden strength that has waited in Earth's depths for this day. Nick stared at the vast armada in stunned silence. Why didn't surface humanity know about any of this? Tony's expression grew serious as he began explaining the true history of their species. Because we learned that sometimes the greatest strength comes from appearing weak. The galaxy needed to see humanity as a young, developing species while we prepared for the day when our true nature would be revealed. Admiral Zara Kess of the Altarian Navy watched Earth grow larger on her command ship's main screen. Behind her, the combined fleet of the Galactic Council stretched across space like a deadly constellation. 50,000 ships from 12 different species, each one equipped with the most advanced weapons their civilizations could produce. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet, her communication officer reported. They appear to be taking defensive positions around their planet. Zara activated the tactical display and saw exactly what she expected to see. 800 human ships, primitive by galactic standards, were arranging themselves in what appeared to be a desperate last stand near Mars. The humans were clearly outmatched and outnumbered, but they seemed determined to fight anyway. Typical human behavior, Zara said to her tactical officer. They never know when they're beaten. This should be over quickly. Meanwhile, on Luna Defense Station, Admiral Jake Morrison coordinated with Captain Tony Walsh through encrypted communications that the alien fleet couldn't detect. The plan they were implementing had been developed over centuries, waiting for exactly this moment. The surface fleet is in position, Jake reported to Tony. They'll engage the aliens as planned, making it look like we're throwing everything we have at them. Tony nodded from his position deep beneath Earth's surface. The Deep Fleet is ready. Captain Gary Price has the first wave prepared for launch. Through the ocean tunnels, the aliens will never see us coming. Jake looked at the tactical display showing the approaching alien armada. Are you sure this will work? We're asking our surface ships to engage an enemy they can't possibly defeat. Trust the plan, Tony replied. Your surface fleet just needs to convince the aliens that they're seeing humanity's full strength. The real battle begins when they think they've already won. Captain Gary Price stood on the command deck of his ancient warship, surrounded by crew members who had awakened. From 800 years of sleep, each person moved with practiced efficiency, operating technology that the surface world couldn't even imagine. Gary's ship was one of 50 that would make the first strike against the alien fleet. All systems are showing green, his tactical officer reported. The ocean tunnels are clear, and our exit points are ready. Gary had trained for this moment before going into his long sleep, but actually living it felt surreal. Begin the ascent. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity is really capable of. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, massive doors that had been sealed for centuries began to open. The ancient human ships rose through underwater tunnels that connected to the hidden complex beneath Yellowstone. These passages had been built using technology that could move vessels through liquid environments without creating any surface disturbance. On her command ship, Admiral Zara was watching the human fleet near Mars with growing confidence. The human ships were using predictable tactics and weapons that her species had encountered many times before. This would be exactly the kind of easy victory that the Galactic Council expected. Begin the attack, Zara ordered. Target their larger ships first. Let's end this quickly and move on to the planet itself. The Galactic Council fleet opened fire with weapons that could destroy cities. Beams of energy that could slice through mountains struck the human ships, and several of them exploded immediately. To Zara, this looked like the beginning of the end for human resistance. But Jake Morrison and his surface fleet were fighting according to the ancient plan. They absorbed losses while making the aliens believe they were seeing humanity's full military capability. Every ship lost was a sacrifice to maintain the deception that had protected Earth for centuries. Surface fleet is taking heavy casualties, Jake reported to Tony. The aliens are completely focused on our position. They have no idea what's coming. Tony checked his displays and saw that Gary's ships were now in position beneath the alien fleet. Launch the attack. Show them who we really are. Gary's ship burst from the ocean's surface like a creature from Earth's deepest myths. The alien. Sensors focused on the battle near Mars completely missed the signatures of ships emerging from the planet's waters. Gary's vessel moved with speed and agility that made the alien ships look like they were standing still. Target their command ship, Gary ordered his weapons officer. Let's introduce ourselves properly. The ancient human weapons fired beams of energy that passed through the alien shields as if they didn't exist. Zara watched in shock as her most heavily defended ships began exploding around her. The technology hitting her fleet was unlike anything she had ever encountered. Where are these ships coming from? Zara demanded, but her tactical officers had no answers. The human vessels were appearing from Earth's oceans, using stealth technology that made them invisible until they chose to attack. Gary's ship moved through the alien formation like a knife through cloth. His weapons could penetrate any defense. The aliens possessed, while his own shields deflected their return fire without effort. Around him, 49 other ancient human ships were demonstrating the same overwhelming superiority. This is impossible, Zara's tactical officer reported. These human ships are using technology that's centuries ahead of ours. Their weapons, their shields, their speed, everything is beyond our capabilities. Zara stared at the tactical display as her fleet began to fall apart. Ships that had been considered invincible were being destroyed by enemies that seemed to appear from nowhere. How did we miss this? Our intelligence said the humans were primitive. On his command ship, Tony, Walsh monitored the battle with satisfaction. The first wave of ancient ships was performing exactly as designed, shocking the alien fleet and disrupting their formation. But this was only the beginning of what the deep fleet could do. Admiral Morrison, you can withdraw your surface ships. Now, Tony transmitted. We'll take it from here. Jake nodded and began pulling his remaining vessels back from the battle zone. The surface fleet had done its job, convincing the aliens that they had seen humanity's full strength. Now it was time for the galaxy to learn the truth about Earth's real defenders. Tony activated the main launch sequence, and throughout the underground complex, ancient ships began rising toward the surface. Thousands of vessels that had waited in darkness for 8 centuries were finally going to war, carrying with them the accumulated knowledge and power of humanity's true civilization. Captain Beth Murphy stood on the command deck of her massive dreadnought as it rose from the depths of the Atlantic Ocean. Around her, thousands of ancient human ships were emerging from hiding places across Earth's surface. Each vessel carried technology that made the Galactic Council's fleet look like children's toys. Beth had been asleep for 800 years, but her memories of the Great Plan were as clear as if she had helped design it yesterday. She activated the ship's communication system and began broadcasting on all frequencies used by the galactic community. This is Captain Beth Murphy of the Human Deep Fleet, speaking to all vessels in this system, she announced, her voice carrying across space to every ship in both fleets. It is time for the galaxy to learn the truth about humanity. Admiral Zara Kess listened to the broadcast from her damaged command ship, watching in horror as more human vessels continued to appear from Earth's oceans, underground facilities, and hidden bases that her sensors had never detected. Her fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that shouldn't exist. Impossible, Zara whispered, staring at the tactical display. Our intelligence reports showed that humans were a primitive species. How can they have this level of technology? Beth's voice continued across the communication channels, calm and clear despite the battle raging around her. For the past several thousand years, humanity has maintained a careful deception. We allowed the galaxy to see us as a young, chaotic species, while we secretly guided your development from the shadows. Dr. Andrew Hill, who had been awakened along with the ancient fleet, appeared on screens throughout the Galactic Council ships. His message was being broadcast simultaneously to every major world in the galaxy, ensuring that the truth would spread far beyond this single battle. "My fellow beings of the galaxy," Andrew began, "what you are witnessing today is not the rise of a new power but the return of your oldest neighbors. Humanity achieved spaceflight and advanced technology while most of your species were still developing basic tools." The revelation sent shockwaves through the alien fleet. Ship commanders who had been confident in their technological superiority suddenly found themselves facing an enemy that was demonstrating capabilities they couldn't understand. Energy weapons that could pierce any known defense, shields that deflected the most powerful attacks, and ships that moved with impossible speed and agility. Beth's dreadnought moved through the center of the alien formation, its weapons carefully, targeting ships to disable rather than destroy. The message was clear. Humanity could have wiped out the entire fleet in minutes, but chose restraint instead. The Galactic Council was not formed by accident. Andrew continued his broadcast. Human observers helped guide your species toward cooperation and peace. We influenced the development of your laws, your trade agreements, and your mutual defense treaties. For centuries, we have been the unseen guardians of galactic stability. Admiral Zara finally understood the magnitude of what her species had attempted. They hadn't attacked a primitive world defended by inadequate forces. They had declared war on the galaxy's oldest and most advanced civilization, a species that had been protecting them without their knowledge. "Why?" Zara broadcast on an open channel. "If you had this power all along, why did you hide? Why let us believe you were weak?" Captain Tony Walsh, commanding the fleet operations from his flagship, answered her question. "Because true strength is knowing when not to use your power. We chose to step back and let other species develop naturally, intervening only when necessary to prevent catastrophic wars." The ancient human ships continued their demonstration of overwhelming superiority, but they followed strict rules of engagement that had been established centuries earlier. Every shot was carefully aimed to disable alien vessels without killing their crews. Rescue ships were already moving to assist damaged alien vessels, providing medical aid and emergency repairs. Beth activated her ship's historical archives and began broadcasting records that the ancient human civilization had carefully preserved. Images and data showing human cities among the stars from thousands of years ago, technology that had shaped the development of multiple galactic species, and evidence of human involvement in major historical events that other species thought they had experienced independently. "The ruins on Alteria Prime that your archaeologists attributed to an unknown extinct species," Andrew said during his continuing broadcast. "Those were human outposts from our early expansion period. The mathematical principles that form the foundation of Zephyrian science, developed by human scholars and carefully introduced into your educational systems over generations." As the truth spread across the galaxy, reactions varied from species to species. Some felt betrayed by the deception, while others were grateful to learn that a benevolent force had been guiding their development. The common theme was shock at discovering that humanity was far older and more advanced than anyone had imagined. Dr. Stone, now serving as humanity's primary spokesperson, appeared on communication screens throughout the galaxy. "We understand that this revelation is difficult to accept. For too long, we have hidden our true nature. But the time for deception has ended. The galaxy faces new challenges that require honest cooperation between all species. The battle, if it could still be called that, was effectively over. The Galactic Council fleet was completely outmatched and surrounded by human ships that could have destroyed them at any moment. But instead of pressing their advantage, the ancient human commanders offered something unexpected: mercy, and partnership. Admiral Jake Morrison, now coordinating between the surface and deep fleets, received a transmission from Admiral Zara requesting a ceasefire. Her voice carried exhaustion and a new understanding of humanity's true nature. Admiral Morrison, I formally request negotiations for the surrender of our fleet, Zara said. We clearly misunderstood the nature of our conflict. Jake looked at Tony, who nodded approval. Admiral Kess, we accept your request for negotiations, but we're not seeking your surrender. We're offering you the chance to join us in building a better future for all galactic species. The ancient ships began moving into protective formations around the damaged alien vessels, providing escort and assistance rather than continuing the attack. It was a gesture that spoke louder than any words about humanity's true intentions. Captain Beth Murphy addressed the galaxy one final time as the immediate crisis ended. Today marks the beginning of a new era. Humanity no longer hides in the shadows, but we extend our hand in friendship to all species willing to work toward genuine peace and cooperation. 3 months after the failed invasion, President Daniel Carter stood in what had once been the United Nations building, but was now the center of galactic government. Representatives from all 12 species of the former Galactic Council sat around a circular table, working together to establish new laws and agreements that would govern their shared future. Admiral Zara Kess, who had once commanded the invasion fleet, now served as the Altarian representative to the new Galactic Assembly. The shame of her defeat had transformed into respect for humanity's wisdom and restraint. She often found herself seeking advice from Admiral Jake Morrison, who had become Earth's primary military liaison. The transition has been smoother than anyone expected, Zara told Jake during one of their regular meetings. When your species revealed the truth about your technological capabilities, many of us feared that humanity would seek revenge for our aggression. Jake smiled, looking out the window at the bustling city below where humans and aliens worked, side by side. Revenge was never the goal. Our ancestors designed the great plan to protect the galaxy, not to dominate it. Everything we've done has been focused on creating lasting peace. The revelation of humanity's true history had transformed Earth from an apparent backwater world into the galaxy's new capital. Ancient underground cities that had been hidden for centuries were now open to the public, showing incredible architecture and technology that left visitors amazed. The massive shipyards beneath Yellowstone had become a symbol of humanity's patient wisdom and long-term planning. Captain Tony Walsh, now serving as Director of Galactic Defense, oversaw the integration of ancient human technology with the existing galactic fleet. Rather than replacing alien ships entirely, human engineers worked to upgrade and improve existing vessels, sharing their advanced knowledge freely with all species. The most important thing we can do is teach, Tony explained to a group of alien engineers touring the underground facilities. Our technology is powerful, but our greatest strength has always been our ability to work with others and share what we've learned. Dr. Andrew Hill had become the galaxy's leading expert on interspecies cooperation, helping to establish new educational programs that brought together young people from all civilizations. His work focused on creating understanding between species that had previously viewed each other with suspicion and fear. In the Great Assembly Hall, President Carter addressed representatives from across the galaxy. Today we establish not just new laws and treaties, but a new way of thinking about our shared future. Humanity offers its knowledge and protection freely, but we do so as partners, not as rulers. The Galactic Assembly had agreed to a new structure that recognized humanity's role as the galaxy's senior civilization while preserving the independence and dignity of all member species. Decisions were made through consensus whenever possible, with humanity serving as mediators when conflicts arose. Captain Beth Murphy commanded one of the many ancient ships that now patrolled the galaxy's borders, protecting trade routes and responding to emergencies. Her crew included members from 6 different species, all working together to maintain the peace that had emerged from the ashes of the old council's aggressive policies. "It's strange," Beth told her mixed crew during one of their missions. "We spent 800 years sleeping, preparing for a war that we hoped would never come. Instead, we found a galaxy ready for cooperation once the truth was revealed." Dr. Stone, now elderly but still sharp, served as keeper of humanity's historical records. His job was to ensure that the true story of human civilization was preserved and shared with future generations. The ancient computers beneath Earth's surface contained thousands of years of knowledge that was slowly being translated and distributed to universities across the galaxy. "The hardest part wasn't keeping the secret," Dr. Stone told a group of young historians. "It was trusting that when the time came to reveal the truth, other species would be ready to accept it and work with us rather than fear us." The economic transformation of the galaxy had been equally dramatic. Human technology had revolutionized everything from energy production to medical treatment, but these advances were shared freely with all species. Trade between worlds flourished as fear and suspicion were replaced by cooperation and mutual benefit. Admiral Morrison often walked through the parks of New Geneva, where children from dozens of species played together while their parents worked on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. The sight reminded him of why the ancient plan had been worth the centuries of patience and sacrifice. "We could have revealed ourselves at any time," Morrison reflected during a conversation with his old friend Lisa Hayes. "But our ancestors understood that timing was everything. The galaxy needed to be ready for the truth, and humanity needed to be worthy of the trust that would come with revelation." The ancient ships continued their patrols, but their mission had evolved from preparation for war to maintenance of peace. Captain Gary Price, who had led the first strike against the invasion fleet, now commanded an exploration vessel that was discovering new worlds and making contact with species that had never been part of the galactic community. "Every new world we find is a reminder of why the Great Plan was necessary," Gary told his crew as they approached an uncharted system. "The galaxy is vast and full of different forms of life. Our job is to help them all find their place in the larger community." The transformation wasn't without challenges. Some species struggled to accept that they had been guided and protected by humanity for so long, while others worried about becoming dependent on human technology and wisdom. But these concerns were addressed through patient diplomacy and careful sharing of responsibility. As the first year of the new galactic order came to an end, President Carter stood once again before the Assembly. "We have proven that cooperation is stronger than conflict, that wisdom is more powerful than weapons, and that patience can achieve what force cannot. The future belongs to all of us working together." Admiral Morrison, now approaching retirement, watched the sunset from his office window and thought about the ancient humans who had sacrificed everything to make this moment possible. Their long sleep had ended not in conquest, but in the fulfillment of humanity's greatest dream, a galaxy united in peace. The hidden fleet that had once waited in Earth's depths now served openly as guardians of galactic civilization. Their presence was a reminder that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to protect and nurture. Humanity had humbled the galaxy not through force, but through the patient demonstration of a better way forward.